Hey, you're watching Impossible Color. In today's quick tip, I'm going to show you how to add focus to your image using the iris blur. Now, when I'm talking about focus, I don't mean the actual focus of your camera, but just the focus of the viewer's interest when they're looking at your image. So I'm going to make a duplicate of my original image. And then I'm going to go to Filter, Blur, and Iris Blur. Now the way that this works is you click somewhere in the middle and you can drag where your focus is going to be, and then you use these handles here, and as you move those in, this is like the protected area of sharpness. So whatever's in there, if you could draw a circle or an oval around that between those points, is going to be sharp, and from those points to the edge is going to be a gradual shift from sharp to blurry. Now if you grab any of these little four handles on the edges, you can change the shape. And if you grab this square, you can turn it from a circle to a square, basically. I don't recommend that in most circumstances. Generally this looks the best. So for this image, I want the face to be nice and sharp. Now, normally I would do my sharpening as the last stage of any kind of processing, but I find for this particular instance, I make an exception and I do all my sharpening ahead of time. So I'm going to pull this handle in a little bit. I want the focus to be mostly on the face here. Now you don't want your handles to be too close to the edge here, or you're going to have a really dramatic shift and it will look very natural. So I'm going to go somewhere like that. And then what you can do is click in this little ring around here, and this is the strength of your blur. So if I went completely extreme, we're going to end up with something like that. And if you're just trying to determine what areas are being affected, you might want to do it really extreme like that, just as a guide. Ignore that. I just clicked. You can actually see this little pin that goes around. You can actually add more points of focus if you want. So I'm going to give a little bit of texture to the areas around there. And now I'm going to turn this slider down to something a little bit more reasonable. Now some people use this tool to try to replicate a shallow depth of field. I don't necessarily recommend it for that. That's something that you should probably do in your camera ahead of time. For this particular image, I did shoot with a very shallow depth of field. I think it was f1.8, but because it was shot straight down and there's not a lot of depth to it, it was pretty close up. The effects of that aperture aren't very noticeable, but this allows us to get a little bit more focus in terms of the subject matter. If you want to change the values using numbers instead of this little radius slider, it's a little bit easier using the number values right up here. So I could click OK on that, but you can actually add more points. So I'm going to try adding something here where a little bit of focus is on the foot, which looks kind of interesting, sticking up here. And I'm going to draw that in a little bit tighter to the foot. Now if I change the value of this slider here, it's also going to affect the original one. If I want to edit the original one, I can just click on the center and go back and forth. And let's add one more just to show how this could be done to the hand. And if you did have an oval shape, then you'll notice that you can rotate as well. Just hard to show that when it's a circle. So once you get all the areas that you'd like to have in focus, you can just click OK on this. And there you go. Here's the original. And here's the iris blur version. So you can see that the eyes are drawn to the foot, the face, and the hand. They're not distracted by all these other details that are kind of extraneous. And if I wanted to take this effect even further, I would probably work on clearing up some of this clutter here using some cloning. Thanks for checking out this tutorial. Please click subscribe if you'd like to get updates on new videos that I have coming out. And if you have any nice tips to add to this, please put your comments down below. See you next week. This is Impossible Color.